Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining today's Srg Cameras Power of Images seminar. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before we start. This seminar should last no longer than an hour. We're going to start with a presentation from Robert Meakin and Gary Cox, and then we'll move into a Q&A session. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see the moderator live chat. So as we go through the session, please feel free to type any of your questions into the box, and then we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to stop talking now and hand over to Rob and Gary. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, everyone. This is Robert Meakin. Thank you for joining. I believe this is probably, I think it's the last webinar of our Spark21 tour. So I hope you've enjoyed it. They've left the best to last, obvious, which is Srg Cameras. So I am the product manager for Srg, and I've been the product manager for about a year now. And Gary Cox, who is our product specialist. So say hi, Gary.
Hi, Rob. Nice to see you on this seminar.
Yeah, good. So Gary's been around for many, many years with Srg, very knowledgeable, my tech guy. So today we're going to present our lineup, what the market is, what's been happening in the market, and go through our product lineup and more specifically talk about the Srg XP1 and the Srg XP25. These are two new models that we introduced a couple of months ago towards the end of last year. We've had some success, and we just want to kind of push that out to the market. So if you're not familiar with it, we'll be talking in some better detail on these two models, and we've got a promotion that we'd like to run past you on this for all our partners out there. Okay, so 45 minutes and then Q&A, hopefully. I've been told that I talk too much, but I'll try and keep it to the key elements of this presentation. I want to start with this slide, and this is a slide that has been used throughout our webinars during Spark21, and that's really talking about the overall portfolio of what Sony offers. So we're talking about Srg cameras today, but you may have heard Philippe Ramoun talk about beamforming mic, edge analytics, the hybrid classroom, going to hybrid, and obviously Srg camera is part of that solution. So we definitely have a very strong solution within the education market with cameras, microphones, beamforming microphones, and our edge analytics application. But on top of that, in our corporate market, we have TIOS, we have Bravia screens, we got business projectors, which is the other half of my responsibility as PM for business projectors. So we have that market. We have home cinema, we have visual entertainment, auditorium type products. So we have a huge range of products and portfolio that only we believe Sony can offer to our partners. And on top of that, behind those products, the technology, SXRD in home cinema, visual entertainment, and now in our business projectors, the X1 technology and so forth within our cameras and so forth. So a lot of technology, a lot of products, a lot of know-how, and a lot of working with third party to create solutions and applications. So let's not forget that, that we do have a very strong portfolio. But today, it's all about Srg cameras. So you probably would have known this, and if you've seen some of my webinars in the past, this is familiar to you. So it's without doubt, or we know now that the last year, due to the pandemic, due to what's been going on in the market, that actually the camera market, the Srg pan tilt zoom market, has grown substantially. Just us alone, and I don't have a slide on this, within our own category of Srg cameras, last year we just closed our FY20 fiscal sales, and we reported that we were 170% above prior year business, 150% above our budget target. So the Srg camera business in the education market with beamforming mic and with edge analytics has been huge due to the pandemic. And we can see that when we look at data coming from FutureSource, and they do believe that they will continue to grow worldwide, this market. Okay, and we can already see the explosion within the education and the medical distance learning patient monitoring market. So we've had huge success, not just in the education, but in medical monitoring and in a lot of corporate environments. We've seen a lot of business happen. So those are the key markets. Equally, and these data, just so you know, the data source that we're using is a company called FutureSource, probably familiar with them. They are predicting in FY21 that this growth within the Srg camera will continue. Hopefully not the pandemic, and hopefully that will subside, and hopefully we can get back to normality. But equally, educators, universities, medical, corporate, they're all now starting to think, well, wait a minute, you know, we weren't really prepared for this, and we had to catch up, and that's why we see that growth. Now they're thinking, well, our AV budget, our spend, where are we going to spend it in FY21, FY22? Are we going to future-proof our solutions, future-proof our business? So if this happens again, or we can, be ready next time. So if there's a pandemic or something else, we can have remote learning, we can have remote monitoring, corporations working from home, which they predict will continue. A lot of people maybe not going back to the office full time anymore. There'll be a lot of changes with working from home, working within the office, and so forth. So there's a lot of changes, and this, we believe, in talking to our customers, this is absolutely going on. So Srg cameras, we believe, will continue to grow in FY21. As you can see, there is a bit of a dip in 2022 when all that has processed and gone through, and then you'll see another decline moving forward, and that's probably the 4K market. So 4K resolution will start to pick up more than it is today, and I believe I have a slide as well. Not only that, if we break it down by price segment, 40% of the total EU market is within the Srg or our camera market, from our 120DU all the way up to our X400 and our XP1, XP25. So the biggest part, the biggest chunk of this industry is this market: education, corporate, medical. I'll throw in house of worship as well, because that we had a few wins in the house of worship. Very, very much an American thing, but we've seen a lot of it in the European markets as well. So we have growth potential. I think we both have growth potential here, working together and to try and maximize on that dollar, that spend, that budget spend that is happening within our customers, the universities, corporates, and medical, as I pointed out. Okay, so I hope that's understood, and that is believed from you guys, that this is something that is going to continue. And as I mentioned just previously, in this slide talks about 4K resolution. So in FY21, you can see that it's still a small portion, but they are predicting that by 2023, 30% will be 4K. I personally think that that's quite low. I think that 4K transition or 4K resolution is becoming very popular. We can see it in our own lineup. The XP1, the XP25 are both 4K enabled. Our X120, our X400, you can upgrade to 4K. So we're already in that kind of forward thinking of 4K. 4K is coming, just like it is everywhere else, right? Everybody talks 4K. So that is happening, and I think it will grow faster, and our portfolio obviously looks to that future. And last slide, I think I have, maybe wrong, but the last slide is who are the players in this market? So this is from FutureSource again. So 60% of that market share comes from 5 brands. So that slide that I showed you about the price segment, I'm talking about that segment and that segment only. So it's Sony, it's Panasonic, it's Vadio, it's Lumens, PTZ, and Axis. These are the key players. But the message here is, of those, 33% of them comes from Sony or Panasonic. And there's always a kind of a battle between Pana and Sony within this, again, this area. We're talking about corporate education, medical. We're not talking about media. The media is a whole different group. We do offer media type products, obviously. That is our core business. And we will talk about that as well, the products that we offer. But that's a different market. That's the very high end studios, broadcast, now more into the kind of local radio station podcast type things. That's more the media side. We're talking about the market that we play in. So it's a tight-knit group. There are other products, and we know that there's other products out there. We do know that there's a lot of new products coming to the market that are quality not so good, a bit on the low end side, probably very price competitive. We're aware of these, but we would like to still hold that the quality of Sony, why Sony, and why would you choose Sony is still there. The quality, the technology that we offer, which leads me to why Sony. Well, the technology that we offer, the lens, the image sensory, so all our products, Exmor, CMOS, and Exmor R are Sony technologies. We produce the majority of the camera blocks that are on the market today. So we have the know-how, we have the technology, and it fits in our Srg lineup, it fits in our Brc lineup, it goes into our production cameras, it goes into our film cameras. So we have very strong understanding, wealth of knowledge when it comes to the technology behind these type of cameras. And like I said, the majority of the technology out there, the image sensors are coming from Sony. Okay, so I think everybody understands that in the market. So difference between Exmor R, capture less noise and clear images with Exmor R technology. So this is something that we just recently introduced. It offers twice the sensitivity of previous models. So we've developed this technology, produces high quality color images with less noise. So as you can see from this slide, I think I'll let Gary just explain in more detail the front illuminated and the back illuminated technology and how that's changed, how we flipped it, but we can provide a better quality, less noise. So I don't know if you want to jump in here, Gary.
Yes, certainly, Rob. I mean, I think the image that you show actually on this slide does visualize how the Exmor sensor has changed from the standard Exmor to the Exmor R. In essence, what the Exmor R sensor is doing is it's flipped the sequencing of how the light is seen through the sensor block. So with the standard front illumination Exmor sensor, you actually have to have in the structure of the sensor a wiring framework before the light actually hits the photodiode. So what actually can happen there is some light is reflected and not reaching the photodiode. With Exmor R, because we flipped the structure as to how the different layers are built in within the sensor, the metal wiring frames are underneath the photodiode. So in essence, what that means is more light can hit the light diode for the sensitivity. So this means we can provide optimum video quality with much less noise on the image, and this performs a much higher, brighter, and more higher resolution video output from the sensor. So the Exmor R sensor is definitely the way forward with the Srg camera range, and it's been introduced to the later models.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So very good explanation on our technology. I've probably already gone over this. The target markets for the Srg cameras that we are going to discuss now, it is government, corporate, education, medical, and I've already mentioned house of worship in the previous year, FY20. We did see a lot of opportunities within that. The parish, they're not allowed in the churches or to their house of worship. And so they've been doing a lot of remote communicating, a lot of remote services within all the churches. And so we saw quite a spike within that market. So interesting, where it was never really a common place here in Europe, but very common in America. It's starting to become common due to the pandemic. But medical, patient monitoring, and the Zoom capabilities, very key for that market. We've seen a huge increase, obviously, because of the pandemic. Education, remote learning, a no-brainer. And if you joined Philippe's presentation about incorporating the whole solution from Sony, not only from the camera, but beamforming, mic, and edge analytics, but Ubicast, which is one of our third-party solutions where we can record and broadcast those seminars out. Proper solution within that market, and corporate, people working from home, and government. We've had huge successes, mainly in the Nordic area, where we have in Sweden, where they have over 400 courts, where they have cameras and they monitor all the court procedures and send them to HQ. And equally in the Scottish courts, where we've had some success as well, where they couldn't have the jury physically get into the courtrooms because they were too small and they couldn't social distance. So they were starting to rent out cinemas, which were not being used, where the jury would sit through cameras. They would be able to watch back and forth the proceedings of the court procedure. And so huge market there as well. And again, these markets are now thinking, how do we move forward if this happens again? Or how do we can maybe up the game and have these happen more often than they did in the past? So clearly, good market. Okay, so the model lineup, finally. So as mentioned very briefly about Exmor and Exmor R, so you can see in our higher type models that we've introduced that we do use the Exmor R, so better quality, less noise, as Gary mentioned, more sensitive to the light, gives it better clarity, better brightness, and less noise. So let's start at the bottom, where we have the Srg 120 series. There's 3 models here. So we have the DH, DS, and DU. So HDMI, SDI, and USB. That's what that stands for. So depending on the output, depending on what you need, that's the model for you. The 120 DU, just so your reference, was huge success last year due to USB and for education. So that simple connection through USB was what most educators were looking for. Nothing complicated, easy to install, easy to set up, okay? And then we have the X300 series, which is the 300 HC and HW. These are models that we've had in lineup for some time. White or charcoal is the difference between those 2 models. And then these models here are the X400, X120. We launched these products probably over a year ago now, year and a half, Gary, I can't really remember.
Yeah, it's probably just coming up to a year and a half ago.
Okay, a year and a half ago. So very successful, replaced a lot of our old models that we discontinued in the 300 series. What's unique about these is you can see at the bottom, we have the Srg L 4K license. I will talk about that a little bit more, but these are 1080 60p cameras, native, but they have the ability to upgrade to 4K. So going back to my slide about the adoption of 4K in this market, these products are perfect. So bring them in today to your partner, to your customer solution, on the premise that in the future, near future, they may want to have 4K. Very simple upgrade with license, and they can then take on 4K native and produce 4K native images. So a really good solution with those products. And then we talk about the new models that we introduced, the box POV models, the XP1 and the XP25, 4 in the lineup, white, black, depending on what you want. So more in the kind of low end market. Equally, as you can see, we have our BRC line. Our BRC line is not necessarily managed by Gary and I, but we certainly get involved in a lot of applications within these markets when the customer is looking for a higher end quality and more kind of broadcasty type features. So the BRC X series, the 400, is very similar to our X400 Srg. The only real difference with, I think, a few other features is that it's 4K standard. So there's no license. We've gone for the upgrade scenario because we know the majority of the business today in those markets that we address, it's still 1080p, 1080 60p, but there is a potential for upgrade. So that's why we have that upgrade path. Typically in the media market now, it's mostly 4K, 4K, 4K. So that's standard within that model. And I believe there's a few other features in there. And then we jump up to that real high end, the 800 and the BRC H900 and the X1000, very high end 1-inch CMOS type technology, image sensors for the very high-end broadcast type of applications, reality TV, broadcast, production, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's go through this one by one. So as I mentioned, the Srg 120D series, so universities, lecture theaters, corporate meeting rooms, you've got it, you know, what I've been talking about. Incorporated to Edge Analytics, as I mentioned. So the only real difference here, if you look at the specifications down here, I'll use my pointer, all 1080 60p, as pointed out. Field of view, all 71 degrees angle, all 12 optical zoom with the 12 digital zoom. And here's the difference: USB 3.0 with the DU, HDMI output with the DH, and 3G SDI with the DS. So that's the only difference. And the control with RS-232, VSCA over IP. So depending on what your customer wants, depending what output they're using, determines which model they need. Okay, and then you can see the back end of each model. Okay, so that is kind of our entry-level Srg cameras that we've been offering for some time. They remain in our lineup for the whole of FY21 fiscal. So don't be worried, none of these are becoming end of life. Okay, there is obviously further information on our website about these products. So if you want to get further detail, you know, please go to our website where all the specifications are listed. And obviously, I'll talk about it now, but this applies to all our models. So our prime support contract, so all our models currently come with a 3-year return to base warranty. So for 3 years, if there's any issues or anything working with prime support, you will then have a return to base to repair. We have upgrades. We have swap upgrades. So a 2-year extension, so you can go to 5 years, and a swap. So if anything goes wrong with that model, instead of repairing it, we will swap. Now, there is a standard promotion on right now for your customers. If they purchase one of, or any of these cameras we're talking about, and they register through Prime Support to make sure that we know who they are, what cameras they've got, they will instantly sign up for a swap guarantee. So it will still be 3 years, but if they signed up within 60 days of purchase with our warranty, with our Prime Support people, then if there's any problem with that product, instead of return to base, we will swap it. So that's it's a standard promotion that we've been offering for some time now, and it will continue for FY21. So that's a clear message to your customers that with us, you can just quickly register and we can upgrade you to that swap warranty right away. But it's for 3 years, or they can purchase 2 more years plus swap. Okay, I may have overemphasized that a little bit, but I think it's a key message with our warranty package. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. So this is our 300 series. There was 2 other models within this category that we have discontinued. So the only 2 we've got left is, well, it's really 1 model, but you can have it in white or black. So it's still 1080 60p resolution. The field of view is 65 degrees. It is a 30 optical zoom, so a better optical zoom. A lot of medical customers like this, they need to zone into the patient's room to see statistics within the apparatus within the room, to talk to the patient as well. And certainly these were products that were used quite a lot within the pandemic that we saw in FY20. Also 20K's digital zoom and HDMI out. Okay, and again, control through the various connections. Again, it's mounted, it's education, it's corporate, municipalities, courtrooms. We see a lot of courtrooms wanting this type of product, and medical remote monitoring. So 1 model exists within this category and still will remain with our lineup throughout all of FY21. Okay, so I will go to the
I think if I may, Rob, actually just add something. On both the 300H model that you see here and the preceding camera models, the 120D, DU, DH and DS, these cameras, you can see they have a network connection, which is fine. But this is, just to clarify, this is for video camera control. So this is for the VSCA over IP protocol control. These cameras do not have embedded web servers. So if you wanted anything such as video streaming or to try and access the camera from a web interface for control, these camera models, as they're entry level, they do not adopt any streaming functionalities, network streaming for video, or web-based control. It's simply Visca over IP, just to clarify that point on these entry level models. When we move up to the next versions, that's where we start to introduce web-based camera streaming as well as web-based control.
Thank you. So we'll go to the X series now. So as mentioned, we introduced this about a year and a half ago. We've had some very good success with them. We have the X120 and the X400. So as again, they are 1080 60p resolution, both of them with a 4K license upgrade. So this is the Srg 4K license. So again, talking about that upgrade and the 4K resolution adoption within the market. Start with these two models. Customers will be very happy with the quality and everything that goes with it. But equally, if there's understanding that down the road they're going to need 4K, but not today, this would be the perfect fit, because you can just go in and upgrade to a firmware license, and then that becomes a 4K resolution Srg camera. Okay, field of view 70 degrees, 20 optical zoom on the X400. 12 optical zoom on the 120. We have a thing called clear image zoom that can bring that to 40 on the X400. I think we have a slide next soon that will show you what that means. And then it will be 30K with the 4K. So if you're using the clear image zoom and you have the 4K license, that optical zoom will go from 20 to 30. Okay, and I think I said that right, yes, and 12 digital zoom, 3G, SDI, HDMI, and IP control capabilities. And equally with the X120, it doesn't have the clear image zoom, but you have a 12 optical zoom, 3 SDI, HDMI, IP control, all capable, okay? But again, the clear message here, it's an upgrade path to 4K resolution, okay? Information on these products, obviously, and the 4K license is on our website. So if you want further information, I don't know if you have anything else to say, Gary, at this point.
I think that the only thing to say on these cameras is that they're extremely versatile, as you can see, for the connectivity type as well as the streaming functionalities. So these cameras do implement the web server. They do implement multiple protocols for different video streaming technologies, but additionally to that, these are the first cameras that we introduced that also support the Ndi workflow, so Ndi HX workflow, which is seen as very important today. Certainly looking into the future, there are a lot of adopters moving over from standard IP streaming to the low latency Ndi streaming technology. So we've implemented that with these camera models.
Thank you, Gary. Totally forgot about NDI. Okay, so we want to show you a few features during this webinar. So we'll start with the clear image zoom on the X400. We'll talk about the high speed pan movement on both of the X400 and 120. So we believe that our pan movement is very good, very high speed, which customers are looking for. Picture freeze and the PTZ motion sync, which is important. So hopefully the animation works well on your side, okay? So very simple. So you have on the X400, you have the optical zoom, and then you have the clear image that introduced. So 20 optical zoom standard, but using the clear image zoom, you can then zoom in up to 30 times if you're using the 4K license and 4K resolution, up to 40 times in HD 1080p, 1080 60p. Okay, so you can get really close in. The clarity is very good. The quality is very good on the what we call clear image zoom, which is on the X400. So I hope it will continue. So you can see I hope you saw the animation. But basically what we're saying here is that our high speed pan movement during preset, So very quiet, very smooth, rapid movement to the target position over a maximum of 170 degrees. So that pan tilt angle range. So I don't know if you can explain this a little better, Gary, but it's 30 degrees per pan and 126 per second per tilt. So a very fast motion, very smooth, not tilted at all, very smooth, very clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said it, Rob, and this slide depicts it as well. We've had a lot of feedback from the market when different camera presets were selected, seeing the actual camera motor head driving, and when that's output in live video, you're sort of getting blurred framing as the camera's moving. So a lot of the feedback from the market was to implement different technologies to remove that as a visual artifact in essence. So what we've done is we've geared up the camera motor mechanism to allow it a much faster movement during preset recall. So there's less distortion on the frame. And I think the next slide is a picture preset, picture freeze.
Do you want to keep talking or?
Well, no, yeah, I mean, you're sharing the slide here, but in essence, the picture freeze preset selection, this simply just allows you to move between different camera preset positions without actually showing any of the motion. We have the fast high speed motion movement between presets, but if you didn't want to show any of that movement flow at all in the live video output, you can activate picture freeze. So what will happen is the camera will basically do a frame lock on what the camera is looking at. Then the camera will move to the secondary position that you recall, and then it will activate the live video again from the camera. So you don't get any of that motion movement when the camera goes from position 1 to position 2 to position 3.
So really you have a choice. If you know the pan, tilt, and that zoom, very quick, very fast, no blur and everything, if that's your preference, you have that. But if your preference is no, I want to lock on, frame there, and then move the camera and then show the next image, so you see nothing. It's just as the slide shows you. So you have that option as as a user, which one you prefer, but both equally good. Okay, PTZ motion zinc. So I'll try and explain this in layman terms, but I'm pretty sure that Gary will be able to say it in more technical. So basically, when you have using this camera and you're using the pan and the zoom at the same time, you tend to have in conventional presets, it pans first. Maybe see if I can go back. Yeah, it can. It kind of pans first and then zooms in. But with the 400 and 120, they both work in succession. So you're panning and tilting at the same time. Yeah, that's correct. And zooming in. So you get this very nice, very smooth flow. I'll show it one more time. So instead of having that pan, then zoom, you've got the kind of pan zoom at the same time that gives a very natural, very ease of flow. So the audience who's watching, it's very good, right, Gary? So don't know if there's anything else to say on that.
No, you covered it completely.
Yeah, okay. So, sorry, missed that one. So those are just some of the key features that we want to highlight about the X120 and the X400. Okay, so that is kind of where our core business is right now with those type of features, and with the upgrade to 4K resolution and the Ndi capabilities, as Gary mentioned. So I'm going to quickly jump into the BRC lineup. I'm not going to spend too much time here. We do work with our media group within Sony. They are responsible for this. They're in the broadcast world, but we do see a lot of some of this technology where some of our key customers really want the high-end quality, and there are other features within the broadcast market that they need, maybe in universities where they are actually doing media studies, so they want to have those type of cameras and so forth. So we have 4 models: the X400, which is really our Srg X400 that we have in ours, but it's 4K standard. It's not an upgrade. The H800, which is a 1-inch type EMOS. These are all using, I believe, the EMOS Exmor R CMOS. So they're all using that high-end sensor. 1080 60p view, 64.6 degree, oh, very specific, 12 optical zoom, 2 clear image zoom, 3G HDMI output, and so forth. And again, with the H900, using the Exmor 1080 60i field of view, 59.6, again, being very specific at degree, optical zoom of 14, HD, SDI, RGB output, and then the X1000, which is our 4K tilt zoom camera, 1-inch type Exmor R. So using the best of our technology within this segment. Okay, like I said, I won't spend too much time on this, but if there is a need for these very high-end with rich broadcast features that you find in these products, they are available into this market. Okay.
Just one comment on the BRC range. The BRC range, as Rob mentioned, it is entry into the broadcast videography, cinematography type studio set application. The key things really for the BRC range is they are using up to a 1-inch sensor block on some of the cameras, but the main things are things like the tally light. All of the cameras run the tally system. They all have video signal Genlock functionality, which is a requirement for broadcast, as well as things such as the full color matrix mapping and master blacks, as well as different control protocols that are used in broadcast environments. So that's really just a point to add on the BRC. They are very much more geared to the broadcast pro environment, more so than SRG.
But again, useful to know that these are offered within this market. Okay, so we want to talk about the XP1 and XP25. So we introduced these probably late into last year during the pandemic. So we really want to spend a little bit more time on these two products and just say that they are available through us. We introduced them. They are both 4K standard. There's no upgrade to this. These are 4K resolution. They are, if I can read this correctly, so go through this, HDMI, Ethernet, USB on the XP1. So there is that USB connection, at low end kind of incorporation into the education market and so forth. It does have Ndi capabilities with the Ndi license, which Gary mentioned prior with the X120, X400. The XP25, 4K resolution, HDMI, Ethernet, 25 optical zoom. So I forgot to mention, that is one of the differences. So the XP25 has got a 25-time optical zoom, and it has a 68 degree viewing angle, while the XP1 has a very good viewing angle of 100 degrees. So a very wide angle viewing with the XP1. So classrooms, auditoriums, that type of market, okay? Very compact size, different to the products you just saw. Very compact, very, in small corners, in small areas, not visible, and very compact. So universities, lecture theaters, corporate meeting rooms, and again, with edge analytics, with Philippe, he probably used the XP1 camera while he was doing his demonstration during the webinar he did last week through Spark21. Okay, these are available. Like I said, I think we started in September. They have the 3-year return to base standard warranty, and again with that extension upgrade that we mentioned. Okay, just to go into a little bit more detail. So as I said, 100 degree viewing angle, LAN network connection, RJ45, USB 3.0 connector, Type B, HDMI out, so mouthful, and audio in connector, and then that 25 optical zoom with the XP25. Again, you've got LAN, audio out, audio in, HDMI out connector, HDMI out 1 sports up to 4K 60p, and the RS232 command. So I don't know if there's anything else to speak about, Gary, on this one.
Yeah, I think just a couple of things actually. With these two newer camera models, as you can see that they are non-mechanical, so they are point of view or sort of box style cameras. But the XP1 does have an electronic pan tilt zoom. So with the camera, it's not got an optical zoom, but it does have a digital zoom. So we can utilize digital zoom up to 6 times on full HD with that camera and have an electronic pan tilt zoom within the frame. But additionally, for the 4K element as well, these are the first cameras we have in our lineup which are 4K 60p. The X120 and X400 are 4K 30p resolution. So these are the first 4K 60p that we have. But the last point on these new models as well is we've expanded the different streaming protocols. So we've added RTMP, SRT, MPEG-TS. So there's many more IP streaming technologies and protocols inherently standardized with these camera models. So it allows greater flexibility for your application.
Thank you. Okay, so the Srg XP1 and the 120DU. So the WeAre certification, I'll briefly go through this. We are compatible with Zoom and Teams and so forth. We are now in the process of working with Zoom and Microsoft and Teams to get certified. So we currently don't have that, but we are certainly 100% compatible with those solutions, okay? And with go-to-marketing, I forget about this one. So yeah, so this we are already standard with, right, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm trying to highlight, or what we're trying to highlight here excuse me, using the XP1 camera with the USB connection, yes, we are compatible with all of the applications, all of the standard web collaboration type systems because of the simplicity of the USB connection. GoToMeet, that does have a strange capped resolution limit within the actual application layer of GoToMeet. So the only thing to be aware of with the XP1 is we just need to slightly drop the resolution down from potentially 1080 to 720 for the video framing to work within the GoToMeet application. But that's not a camera related problem. That's an application layer resolution issue that they have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think I'll now pass it back to Alex. I think she's still online.
Thank you,
Any
Rob.
questions that there may be?
Yes, we've had a few questions come through. So first question here is, do the new box cameras, I think they mean XP25, XP1, have SDI video output?
I think I'll take that one, Rob, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, very good question, because dependent on the application, you may want that bayonet type connection and SDI connection for different video signal lengths, etc. The two new cameras do not have an SDI output, but they do have the HDMI output, and they are multi-streaming. As I mentioned, they're supporting a raft of different protocols for different streaming technologies. And the XP1, of course, has the USB output as well as having the Ndi HX workflow. So there are many ways of getting the video signal from these cameras. SDI is not natively on those particular camera models. However, SDI is available through some of the other camera ranges, such as the Srg 120, Srg X120, Srg X400, and the 120DS camera have a native SDI output as well. So we do have cameras to meet the SDI requirements that you may have.
Great, thank you, Gary. Our next question is, do you have certification to use the Srg cameras with Microsoft Teams, Zoom, applications like that? Okay,
so I did mention that towards the end of the presentation. We are in the process of getting the certification of Teams and Zoom. We are 100% compatible with those two platforms, but we are in the process. So that process, we hope, will be ending soon. Our hands are a little tied because we're working in the process of Microsoft Zoom. So we're just waiting on the test results and the approval and the certification. And once that happens, that will clearly be communicated. So, but rest assured that, you know, we are compatible with those two mainly. We are definitely compatible and worked with those two platforms many times. So yes, we certainly will be in the near future.
Great, thank you. Next question, how can your cameras be used in other environments, control systems such as Crestron, AMX, and Extron?
I'll leave that one to Gary.
I thought you would, Rob. No, very good question. Of course, for our cameras, all of our cameras are supporting multiple control protocols, but of course we have our own remote controllers as well. So if you wanted a physical controller, we do offer different remote controls such as the RMIP10 or RMIP500. But from I guess this question is from an integration point of view. So somebody may have an AV facility that already has a control system, but absolutely using either our web-based CGI protocol or Visca over IP. Certainly these cameras can be integrated to Extron, Crestron type environments for full control of the cameras.
Great, thank you. And I think this looks like our final question. So if anyone watching has got any more questions, do type them in for us. Otherwise, this would be our last one. I'll check again in a moment. For your new, so this is about the XP1 and XP25 again. Do I need to use an external power supply unit?
I think I'll take that one, Rob, if that's okay. Very good question, very valid question, because what may not have come across in the picture that was shown in the presentation is the small form factor size of these cameras, because they are very small indeed compared to the traditional pan tilt zoom cameras. And having to have a power supply obviously adds extra space needed for where you're positioning the camera. The idea of these camera models is they're discrete placement. So they can be used with power supplies. They are provided with power supplies in the box, but these cameras also run over PoE connection, so power over Ethernet. So that allows the installation to be really versatile and really discreet, because you can run the power simply over the network cable. Likewise, which I don't think we picked up on when we went through the different camera range, we do also have PoE plus for some of our other cameras, such as the Srg X120, X400. They don't necessarily need to have an external power supply connected to them. They can also be powered over the network with PoE plus.
Great. Okay. Well, I think then that is our last question. So a very thorough and comprehensive presentation from you both. Thank you. So thanks very much for attending, everyone. This is our last live seminar. All of our seminars will be available on demand within the Spark event platform. So please do take a look. And if you have got any questions for Gary and Rob, you can, of course, continue to message them via the SRG stand within our booth. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for listening.